Hey everybody, welcome to my latest episode. I've got morning conversations while you sit on the commode. So smile a big smile, kick back with coffee, enjoy conversation with the peach. She's just a little frosty. She's just a little frosty.
Hello, my sweet and frosty friends. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to another episode of Coffee Convos and Cutting Through the Chaos. I hope everyone's doing great. It's a beautiful day here on Lake Erie today, as you can see back here in the back room. So I'm really excited for this episode today. I've been wanting to do this ever since we did the last one, ever since we've been talking about burnout. And today we're cutting through the chaos of healing the inner child. So we're healing the inner child gently today. We're talking about old wounds, tenderness, and the concept of reparenting, which we're going to get into pretty deep today. So I got my cup of coffee here. Got my fancy new Frosty Peach mug. That's a good cup of coffee. And that's going to get us cranked up. That's going to get us ready. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So today's Frosty Truth is that little me deserves softness and a voice as a child. Now that I'm grown up, I can give her that. So we're going to be talking about healing the inner child today, how we can do that. We're going to recognize when we need to heal that inner child. What kind of signs do we have? What kind of issues come up in our lives that show that we have a wounded inner child? So we're going to go ahead and jump into that. We're going to go ahead and jump on in. So, I said little me deserves softness and a voice growing up. Well, I'm going to be honest. I've said it before. I had an amazing childhood. I have a little bit of trouble relating to this in a lot of ways because I was very fortunate. And I felt like I had the love that I needed, growing up. And I felt like I could talk when I needed to talk for the most part. We were raised different in Gen X. And I do think that some of that does spill over a little bit because parenting styles are different for everybody. Everybody's different. And not everything works the same for every child. So I'm not going to speak to that. I don't have children. So that's one thing I don't want to get deep into because I don't believe in telling somebody how to parent their kid when I don't have one myself. So, just a little tidbit about me. When I was a child, I was very sensitive in the sense of if somebody just looked at me wrong, I would get upset. You just side-eye me and I'm in tears. I can honestly tell you, I don't know where that came from. Like I said, I don't have any traumatic memories. I always felt like I could express myself and everything. But, you side-eye me, I'd get upset. So part of that can be the wounded inner child. And just kind of a little side note, a lot of this wounded inner child stuff is actually kind of buried deep in our unconscious. So I find that very interesting. But a lot of times, you've heard people say, you kind of block things out. It's entirely possible I could have done that. And I haven't quite found that yet. I'm working on that myself to see, because I had some confidence problems growing up. I still occasionally have confidence problems. It's a lot better than it used to be. It's a lot better than it used to be. And, we talked about people pleasing. That goes along with this as well, because I was always a people pleaser. And again, I don't really know why. So that's something that we're going to dig into as well. So we're going to be talking about inner child work, reparenting, and attachment. So what exactly is a wounded inner child? The wounded inner child is part of you that remembers what it was like to be small, what the world was like, the wonder, the awe, the fear, the confusion, and the joy. So it's all tied into, it's good and bad, because we all had good and bad. We all had good experiences, some of us more than others, bad experiences, some of us more than others. But our inner child had to learn how to love, how to get love, and be loved. And once our inner child figured out what they could do, what could I do to get and receive love, attention, affection, all of those things. How did she stay safe? Was there something that happened, like the sound of a screen door shutting or something like that? Someone leaving the house that might have, changed a vibe even. In some families, maybe a screen door meant somebody came home angry. Maybe it meant somebody was upset and leaving, and they slammed the door. See, that changes the whole vibe and the energy in your house. And the inner child is the child is very sensitive to that, because children model. And the associations that we form in our childhood, they don't go away, not without work. They will carry on through adult life. And, we had to learn how to avoid trouble, keep the peace, if you will, when we were children. Like I said, some more than others. How we got rewarded from love. Like I said, if that child does something cute, does a little dance, gets applauded for it, gets recognition, gets love, affection, hugs, applause, they're going to remember that. So what does that child want to do? They want to entertain. Maybe that's where your entertainers come from. Just a little food for thought on that one, right? So the bad side of that is how to disappear when things get too loud. You can shut down. So a lot of times, as adults, we can shut down and we avoid conflict. That's a big one, conflict avoidance. And I did that too. Again, I don't know why. I'm working on that. But a lot of people will shut down. They might not yell and scream, but they shut down. Silence can actually be just as bad as the yelling. Believe it or not, even the inner child understands silence. The child understands silence. And silence can be a trigger. Silence can mean there's trouble. Silence can mean, I can't express myself. I'm keeping the peace. Maybe I need to keep quiet. See, that's where that shutdown comes from, right? So like I said, these lessons didn't stay in your childhood. They followed you like a horsefly through a cow pasture, if that makes any sense. For us Southern folks, we understand things like that. That they follow you everywhere you go. They stick to you. And until we learn how to recognize that, how to be self-aware that this inner child is still in us, is still wounded, and is still looking to complete the sentence, if you will, to fix its unfinished business. So your inner child isn't childish. You don't need to fix the inner child. Your inner child is doing its job. The inner child is your survival mechanism because she learned how to survive. He or she learned how to survive. And we need to be gentle with her. We need to be gentle with her and give her the love that she's been craving for so long that maybe she didn't get growing up. But you're grown now. You can give her that love. You can give her that attention. You can give her that time. You can give her that boundary and not feel guilty about it, right? So, we're going to finish that unfinished business with the inner child. That's why we're here today. So I'm going to grab another quick sip of coffee. Now that we kind of know what we're getting into here, we're going to talk about what we can do to help heal this inner child and what is reparenting. So I'll get my sip of coffee when I look up here.